My mother-in-law moved my son's plate away from the adult table in front of everyone, laughing like it was funny. He was 11 years old. He looked at me with those quiet eyes, and something inside me went completely still, not sad, not embarrassed, ready. Hoke Variant 3, they called it a joke. Moving his chair, sliding his plate, laughing at a child who had done nothing wrong except get a C on a math test. I didn't say a word. I didn't have to, because someone was about to knock on that door and change everything. My name is Danielle Harper. I am 36 years old, and I'm a middle school art teacher. I know that doesn't sound impressive to everyone. It certainly didn't impress my husband's family. But teaching art means I spend every single day watching kids discover what they're actually made of. And I learned a long time ago that the ones who get underestimated the most are often the ones with the most to offer. I wasn't flashy. I didn't drive a luxury car or talk about test prep programs at dinner parties. I was just a woman who loved her son, believed in him completely, and was willing to wait for the right moment. My son Caleb is sensitive and creative and funny in ways that take you by surprise. He notices the color of the sky before a storm. He sketches characters on napkins during long car rides. He feels things deeply, and sometimes that means school is harder for him than it is for kids who are wired differently. His cousin Liam, who is the same age, gets straight A's. Liam's parents make sure everyone knows it. My in-laws have been dropping comparisons for months now. Little comments slipped into conversations like they didn't mean anything, but they meant something to Caleb. I could see it on his face every time. That Thanksgiving, I told myself it would be fine. Just get through dinner, smile, be polite. I was wrong about that. If you've ever sat quietly while someone picked your child apart like it was sport, hit that subscribe button. I want you to know you're not alone. Drop a comment below telling me if you've ever had to defend your kid to the people who were supposed to love them. Click like if you believe a grade is never the full story, because I'm about to tell you exactly what happened that night. Dinner started the way it always did at their house, with the smell of roasted turkey and expensive candles and that particular tension that lives underneath polished things. Everyone was dressed well. The table was set perfectly, and my mother-in-law was already in her element, asking questions designed to sort people into categories. She turned to Caleb with that smile she uses. So, how did the math test go? Caleb put his fork down slowly. I got to see my brother-in-law didn't even pause. Meanwhile, Liam got straight A's. Some kids just have it. He shrugged like he was stating the weather. Then they moved Caleb's chair, literally pushed it back from the adult table as a joke, suggesting he should eat at the kitchen island. People laughed. Not everyone, but enough. Caleb picked up his plate without a word and started walking toward the kitchen. And that quiet dignity he showed in that moment broke something open in me. I stood up. My voice was low, but it didn't shake. He doesn't deserve this. My father-in-law looked at me with the particular exhaustion of someone who thinks they're always right. Maybe if you pushed him harder instead of letting him doodle all day, he'd have something to show for himself. He leaned back in his chair. The implication was clear. They thought I was raising my son to fail. Then the doorbell rang. My mother-in-law frowned at the door like it had interrupted something important, because in her mind, it had. We're not expecting anyone. She opened the door, and she froze, standing on the front step, coat dusted with snow. Holding a thick folder against her chest was Caleb's school principal. She stepped inside carefully, apologizing for coming unannounced on a holiday. But she said it couldn't wait, and she'd wanted to deliver the news in person. My in-laws exchanged looks across the room. You could hear the assumption traveling between them without a single word being spoken. Trouble, finally. Real trouble. My mother-in-law didn't bother being quiet about it. I knew those grades would catch up eventually. The principal asked to speak with me and Caleb specifically. My father-in-law crossed his arms. Whatever it is, you can say it in front of everyone. He wasn't offering openness. He was offering an audience. Relatives leaned slightly forward in their seats. My brother-in-law smiled and said, expelled before he even finishes middle school. That's actually impressive. Caleb's face went red. I reached over and squeezed his hand once, firmly, so he'd know I was right there. The principal opened her folder and said, I'm here because of some exceptional work and a district recognition I wanted to personally deliver. The room shifted. My in-laws looked confused, but the skepticism didn't leave their faces. They were already deciding it was small. A certificate for showing up, a ribbon for participation. My mother-in-law leaned toward the person next to her and whispered, loud enough for Caleb to hear, well, At least he's good at coloring. What they didn't know was that Caleb had been working for months on an entry for a citywide digital art competition. He'd started it in the summer, quietly, without telling anyone outside our home. I had stayed up with him on school nights, helping him work through the technical side, watching him build something from nothing. I had seen emails from the district about a special announcement. I knew what was coming. I had chosen not to tell my in-laws, not to prepare them, not to soften it. I wanted them to see my son the way the rest of the world already did. Without their narrow frame around him, I had waited for this. The principal's folder was thick, filled with official documents and letters on district letterhead. She hadn't driven through the snow on Thanksgiving by accident. That knock on the door was the beginning of something none of them saw coming. She spoke clearly and without hesitation. She told the room that Caleb had won first place in the district-wide digital arts competition. First place. She said his submission had been selected to represent the district at a state-level showcase. She mentioned scholarship pathways connected to specialized arts programs, real ones, the kind that opened doors. My husband had been quiet most of the evening. He looked up from the table. Wait, first place? My in-laws tried to regroup. My mother-in-law straightened in her chair and said it was lovely, but her voice had that particular flatness of someone recalculating. My brother-in-law waved his hand loosely. It's odd. It's not like it's math or science. The principal looked at him directly and said, without raising her voice, this same recognition has been the starting point for several students who went on to attend top universities. It is taken very seriously. Across the room, my childhood best friend, who I had invited to dinner, had her phone out. She'd started recording quietly the moment the principal walked in. Just in case. I caught her eye, and she gave me a small nod. The confidence in the room had started to crack. They had built their whole evening around a story where Caleb was falling short. That story was dissolving in real time. The principal handed her tablet to Caleb and asked him to share his work with the family. He connected it to the living room television. The screen filled with his piece, vibrant and complex and genuinely stunning. Layered colors and movement and a sense of depth that stopped conversation completely. No one said anything for a moment. The room was just quiet, and the art filled it. The principal said, "This is one of the most technically advanced submissions we have received from a student his age." The judges commented specifically on the maturity of his visual thinking. My mother-in-law opened her mouth. But his math grades, creativity and intelligence are not measured by a single test. The principal said it plainly, like she was reading a fact aloud. Caleb stood a little straighter beside me. He said, "I worked really hard on it." His voice was steady. He wasn't performing. He was just telling the truth. My husband looked at his parents. His voice was quiet, but it had an edge I hadn't heard before. "You embarrassed him tonight for no reason." My father-in-law straightened up and started offering compliments. Big ones, sudden ones, the kind that arrive too late and land wrong. I looked at him, and then at my mother-in-law, and I said it clearly. Next year, he'll sit wherever he wants. The laughter from earlier in the evening was completely gone. The room understood exactly what had happened and exactly who had been wrong. We left before dessert. Not because we were upset, but because we had nothing left to prove and nowhere left to be in that house that night. Caleb held his certificate in both hands on the drive home, looking down at it under the passing streetlights. My husband reached over the center console and put his hand over mine. He said he was sorry for not speaking up sooner. I told him it mattered that he did eventually. The texts from my in-laws started the next morning. Supportive ones, warm ones, full of words they hadn't thought to use the night before. I read them and set my phone down. Something between us had permanently shifted, and we both knew it. I made new rules after that. No more grade comparisons at family gatherings. No more public moments where Caleb was measured against someone else and found lacking. Those weren't requests. They were the new terms. Caleb enrolled in an advanced digital arts program that winter. He walked into the first session like he belonged there, because he did. I learned something at Thanksgiving that I already knew but needed to see proven out loud. Protecting your child sometimes means doing nothing except waiting. Waiting for the truth to walk through the front door on its own and fill up the room. They tried to make him small. What they did instead was show everyone exactly how limited their own thinking had always been. If your child has ever been compared or dismissed or made to feel like they weren't measuring up, please leave a comment below. I want to hear your story. Every child carries something real inside them, and not all of it shows up on a report card. Subscribe if you believe that. Share this with someone who needs it today. Click like so this story reaches the people who are sitting somewhere right now feeling exactly the way Caleb felt that night. You are your child's first line of defense. Don't ever forget that. And never, not once, let someone else decide what your child is worth.